All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode for the podcast, Lose Logic. And today's topic, we're going to dive into a little bit of my background. Was in the Navy, was calling in the Navy. So something that we dealt with on a regular basis is something that comes up all the time as actually sexual health, right? So I came across a couple of videos earlier today where they were talking about the STD rates in Atlanta. And then not too long ago, I was finishing up my degree for school. And it's something, a topic that I always dived into when I had to do certain research papers, was talking about STDs or STIs and how it is affecting America. And actually, it is actually affecting America on a very, very big scale. And it's making a comeback. And a comeback in a big way. It's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about because everybody's on this culture kick now where everybody wants to be sexually free and kind of do what they want to do from a sexual standpoint, which to each his own. Now, even with that being said, it's not getting people got to be smart about how you're moving. It's in the podcast, right? Logic. You got to use logic and the things that you're doing and the actions that you partake in. You have to be smart about how you move and smart about the things you do. So what I did was I went through, like I said, this was my background, right? I was a preventive medicine technician when I was in the Navy. So we dealt with this stuff all the time, pulling statistics, looking at numbers, and trying to educate folks when it comes to a sexual health standpoint. So tonight on my podcast, it just came up for something that, came to me today that I wanted to talk about. And it's something I'm always passionate about. When you do something that you're passionate about, it tends to hit a little bit better. So whoever this reaches as it reaches the masses, especially when we chop this up into shorts and things of that nature, hopefully people take a peek at it and actually get some good information from it. So let's get ahead and start, right? So the video I came across was a young lady talking about how the rise of HIV cases in Atlanta. So Atlanta, Georgia, obviously people know Atlanta, Georgia is a hotbed. People like to go to a party, hang out, have fun. It's kind of like, from a Black culture standpoint, it's kind of one of those spots where it's like, hey, this is the place where Black culture is. It's thriving, it's growing, and it's a place where people want to go and experience. You got a lot of HBCUs in the area. So you got a lot of stuff going on. So this breakdown, I didn't break it down and go into specifically from an ethnicity standpoint, more so from a national average breakdown standpoint. So obviously here in Texas, so Texas is another place where the numbers have kind of been on the rise and on a significant rise. Now, the thing with numbers, if you know numbers, especially when it comes to statistics and looking at reviews and how things break down, you have to look at the numbers by how they're actually breaking them down and the segment in which they're dissecting these numbers and doing a total count, right? So all of these counts that I'm going to talk about and go over is per 100,000 people. So that's a lot of people when you think about it. And how the numbers look, how the numbers are actually coming up, and how it's actually breaking down. So first, everyone talk about groups, right? Which groups is this affecting the most? So the groups that are being affected the most by this is the groups, the young adults. So that's the age of 15 to 24. Now, you think of 15 to 24, those are kids in high school. Think about that. So your high schoolers out here, doing the stuff. And in high school, at least I know when we went to school, you had sexual health and all that kind of stuff. Now, if they still doing that stuff now, I have no clue, but they might need to, because this is one of the age groups where there's a significant rise. They actually have the highest rise out of any age group when it comes to STIs and STIs being reported. So if you look at a breakdown, so 15 to 24 account for nearly half. So it's about 48.2% of reported cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis combined in the U.S., and that's in 2023. So syphilis, chlamydia reports show that 55.8% of all cases occur in this age group, which is wild. So chlamydia, aka another name was called the clap, right? It's a sexually transmitted disease, affects both male and females. So when you think about any kind of STI, usually on average, for a sign or symptoms to show up, it usually takes about 7 to 14 days. About 14 days is usually that nice sweet spot to where if you came in contact with somebody that you perceive may have been infected with something, usually around that 14-day mark is when you should go get tested and get checked out to make sure everything's copacetic and everything's going on, which is a trip that you think about that. Now, here's a kicker that a lot of people might not know. Another age group that is really being affected currently right now is that age group of 55 and older. Yeah. The old folks is out here getting it in. Crazy when you think about it, isn't it? It's kind of a shocker. People are like, what? 55 and older? 55 and older, man. 55 and older are experiencing a rapidly rising rates The 15 to 24-year-old group remains the most affected in terms of both case numbers and rates per capita, but 55 and older. So our old folks, man, your old aunties, uncles, folks in the home, getting it in. Hey, man, teach us on, I guess. My old folks want to get some too. But if you're going to be out there doing and protecting the sexual activity, the one thing, like we always tell people, is be careful and always protect yourself, right? So use contraceptive. For ladies. Obviously, ladies getting on birth control is one thing that ladies always use and tend to go to, but also using condoms as well to protect yourselves. Now, things a lot of people don't know, there are female condoms as well, but a lot of times females don't like to use them because they feel like they're uncomfortable or they're just weird to use. So, fellas, it's on you to make sure you're wrapping up and not spreading this craziness among the ladies. Now, next one I broke down, want to dig into is a state comparison. So, like I said, I'm here in Texas, and then obviously, like I said, the video I came across was talking about Atlanta, so talking about Georgia. So between Georgia and Texas, Texas reported the highest absolute number of STD cases, 150,000 chlamydia cases in 2023. However, Georgia showed a significant higher rate relative to population size, with 646.4 cases per 100,000 residents, compared to Texas at 491.9 per 100,000. This means Georgia's population is more heavily impacted proportionately. So if you're looking at the numbers, like I said, you might have a higher rise of reporting, things of that nature. But when you look at the numbers, like I said, they're breaking down per 100,000 people. Numbers is pretty crazy. Now, this is something, the fun stuff, where you start getting into looking at the USA as a whole. So, like it says in the title, right? US, like that secret, because people don't like to talk about sexual health. People don't like to talk about, infectious disease control and how things are affecting it, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the country. But this stuff is important because we have a rise of infectious disease like STIs and things of that nature. It compromises the health of the nation as a whole. And when the health of the nation as a whole is compromised, you end up having a whole bunch of issues, because a lot of times when people contract an STI, right? So, or STDs, if you contract an STD, usually what happens is your body becomes you have some kind of immunocompromise, right? Like you have some kind of infection, whether it's sores, bumps, or whatever, and stuff like that. And you got different versions, different kinds of sexually transmitted diseases. So you got, obviously, the ones that always come up is chlamydia, gonorrhea, right? You got those. Syphilis. Syphilis is another one that's kind of been making this way and creeping this way back up. Over the past 70 years, syphilis kind of had a pause where the numbers were super, super low. But recently, with the rise in all the other, STDs going on, syphilis is kind of creeping its way back in there, is making its way up. Syphilis is one of those ones, almost like HIV, that's very dangerous, because syphilis comes in stages, right? You have your stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then stage 4. So stage 1, you have the first signs and symptoms. Stage 2, it goes to the next level of signs and symptoms, which is usually like rashes, bump, and stuff breaking out. Your first one is usually a canker sore. That's stage 1. So stage 2, you got, you're starting to get that rash break out on your body. Stage 3 is where it gets sketched, because at stage 3, all your symptoms go away. So people are like, oh man, it just worked itself out, man, and went away. No, it didn't. It did not go away. What it is in that latent stage where this is where stuff starts to get dangerous, because once it hits stage 4, now it's starting to attack your organs and things like that within your body, which could eventually cause you to succumb to the disease, and then you end up dying. You ever heard the story of the man, the gangster Al Capone? That's what took him out. He had syphilis, it went untreated. Obviously, ate at his brain, right him away, and then he ended up croaking. So be mindful of that. But let's look at this, which is some of these states might trip people out. So top states with the highest STD rates from 2024 to 2025. According to the latest data, the top 10 states with the highest STD rates per, like I said, this is all per 100,000 people. Number 1, Mississippi, with 1,291.4 cases reported. Louisiana is number 2. So 1,058. And then you got South Carolina with 999. Alaska. What the world are they doing up in Alaska? It's cold. So I guess they ain't got nothing better to do but to cuddle up with each other and try to get all nice and warm and toasty. Well, they getting warm and toasty, right? Because they getting toasty hot between them sheets. So Alaska is at 990.8 cases reported. And then from Alaska, you go to North Carolina with 898, Alabama 857, Oklahoma 842, Tennessee, 836. Georgia, and there's Georgia again, 826. And then rounding out the top 10 is New Mexico with 818 cases. Crazy. Like if you're looking at these numbers, and that's just we got 50 states, right? That's the top 10. Think about it. So obviously, as you go through the states, numbers vary. And the reason numbers vary as much as they do, because like with anything else, it comes down to reporting, right? It comes down to if people are actually taking the time, actually reporting these cases and actually, getting themselves screened, getting themselves checked and things of that nature. So obviously, if you are a highly sexually active person, you probably should be getting yourself checked every couple of months or whatever, especially now in today's world, where when it comes to sexuality and all those things, which I'm not going to get into that whole topic, but from talking about it in reference to STDs, a lot of people they're crossing it up. You got guys sleeping with guys, and the guys going around sleeping with women, women sleeping with women, and all the stuff mixed in between. So when you got all that stuff going on, you got dudes that are engaging in high risk activity, like same-sex sexual activity is considered a high risk activity, which is where HIV PrEP and all those things come in. But if you got dudes for taking the activities like that, and then they're also sleeping with women, this is why you have a rise in numbers of certain cases, because there's that mix going on, right? So you're partaking in, as they say, high risk sexual activity. So it's not in this. I said obviously the same sex thing, but it's not the only thing. High risk sexual activity is when you have an increased amount of sexual partners as well. So if you're operating where you're sleeping around with a bunch of people, your chances of contracting some kind of STD becomes very, very high because you have a high number of partners. So when you have a high number of partners, it's not cool. People think it's a flex, they slept with this many people, whatever. No, it's not. You just putting yourself at risk. You're like playing Russian roulette, as Eddie Murphy once said in one of his stand-ups, like playing Russian roulette. And when you crap out, yeah, it's not a good look. Crap out's kind of hard. Betting on some stuff, and then that stuff come up negative, or in this case, positive. Is just not a good look. So you have to be mindful of that and understand exactly what you're doing and how that's going. All right. So a key takeaway. So youth 15 to 24 remain the highest group at risk. Remain the highest risk group. And we think about that, man, 15 to 24. That group is pretty wild. Like most of it, if we look at the studies, breaks down when people get more so in their 20 years. Like people get in the age, when they get to the age of 20 is when they really start, kind of deep diving and, kind of want to explore and do some stuff. But that's not to mention, like I said, that age 15, man, it's a popular show that was on MTV years ago. People get all these girls getting pregnant at the age of 16. So you think like it's recording about cases being reported at 15 years old or whatever. But if you look at the numbers now, which I'm pretty sure if they did a deep dive, kids are becoming sexually active a lot earlier than they used to, which also puts them at risk. Why? Because they don't know nothing. They have no knowledge, no concept of what's going on, what they actually doing, and the risk they're actually putting themselves at. So it's on us, the people that actually know better, to educate them and to try to educate the world as best we can to make sure this information is disseminated out there. There's a lot of information that comes out from a political standpoint, from just things going on in the world. But when it comes to health, especially sexual health, I think this is something that is always lacking. And because it's lacking, these are putting people more at risk because people are not aware of the stuff going on. Like the rise of syphilis is astounding to me. You rarely hear about it, right? You rarely hear about any kind of STD issues, stuff like that, unless you're into the health field and you doing deep dives and you actually kind of keeping up with this stuff. I have a regular thing to the CDC. So when numbers and stuff is coming in from the CDC standpoint, whether it's infectious disease control, from whether STDs or just, infections and diseases going on in the world, whether it's vector borne. So vector borne would be those diseases coming from, bugs, mosquitoes, and things of that nature. And you see the stuff going on, and this stuff is prevalent. This stuff is going on. Like people think that if you stay in your little bubble, in your little cocoon, that this stuff won't affect you, but eventually this stuff will end up making its way back to you. So you have to be mindful of that and understand what's going on, how to protect yourself. Getting back to the state of Georgia, Georgia has a higher proportion burden than Texas. Getting back to comparing to Texas and Georgia, because it was one that came up. Like these two states were the ones that were kind of hot and heavy because they were perpetuated out there. Obviously, Houston is another hotbed where a lot of stuff goes on. So Houston and Atlanta is kind of those two cities where people always talking about going. Miami as well. You know, people go on party, hooking up, doing stuff that they're doing, and then you start seeing a rise in numbers of STDs being reported in these two cities, particularly because of how the activity is. Now, a lot of times the numbers can also be misguided because one, people are not reporting it, and people are not getting checked. And I think that to me is one of the most dangerous things in the world. Like if you know you're a highly sexually active person and you're not getting yourself checked and you're not taking care of yourself, you're putting other people at risk. And people have gotten sued in the past for engaging with somebody knowing that they have something, actively have something, and not sharing it. And that's a dangerous game to be playing because, again, it's like playing Russian roulette. You come across the wrong person, give them something that they can't get rid of, and that person end up doing something to the other person. People say it's not justified. You should put your hands on people, get crazy. But think about the rage of somebody putting your health at risk from a long-term standpoint because they were just being reckless and just not being considerate of what's going on. Not a smart move, man. Not a smart move at all. So also in there, southern states, which is wild. The South. Everybody like to party in the South, man. People like to go to the cities up north, but they like to party in the South, apparently. Southern states dominate national rankings with Mississippi and Louisiana leading. Older adults 55 plus are experiencing a surge, but remain lower in total cases compared to the younger groups. So our young folks, 15 to 24, our old folks, 55 and above. Hey man, look, those two groups are the ones they kind of got the light on them. You sitting in the chair at the police office and the cops like, hey, where were you on the night of? That's what's going on with those two groups. So I say if you have any young folks that you're around or that you deal with, that you come in contact with, try to educate them as best they can. I mean, as best you can. You know, give them the information, put the information out there, send them the link to this podcast so it can be talked about. Like, hey, look, this is not a game. This is very, very serious. You have to protect yourself. You have to be mindful of what you're doing. It all sounds cool. It's all fun and games when everybody wants to engage and do all this stuff. But you have to be, if you're going to engage in an activity, you have to be smart about it. It's like riding a motorcycle. If you're going to ride a motorcycle, you got to gear up. Helmet, jacket, gloves, the things that you need to make sure that you have what you have to take care of the stuff you need to take care of. So I say that to say, just be smart about it. Use logic. Like, think about what you're doing. Think about what you're engaging in. Obviously, the main thing that I would try to tell people in my wisdom or lack thereof is, don't be such in a rush. I could easily tell people abstain. Obviously it's just abstaining from the activity is the best way to protect yourself. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is key. If you don't engage in activity, you're not putting yourself at risk to be able to get something that you don't want to get. But we also have to be realist about it and be logical and understand the world that we live in, the cultures that we're seeing, and how things are moving around us. I could jump up on the table unless I'm locking some people in a room and putting them in some kind of restraints. They're going to go out and do it. I could tell you, blue in the face, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And people will still go out and do it anyway. So if you're going to engage in those kind of activities, protect yourself, be smart about what you're doing. Look at the people that you're engaging in these activities with and protect yourself. Use logic, be smart about it. Don't just be out there just jumping into some stuff. Be smart about what you're doing, protect yourself, and make sure that you can keep yourself healthy, keep yourself living. Like I said, if you're one of those people that's engaging in high activity, make sure you're getting yourself checked to be able to protect yourself and protect the people that you are engaging with. If you don't folks that's on the low, and you know what I mean by on the low, please don't do that to people. Be mindful of what you're doing and the risk you're putting people at. Don't do that. Honesty is the best lie. So if you out there doing some crazy stuff and you double dipping, hey, let the person know you double dipping. Give them the option to say yes, cool, I'm still gonna message you anyway because I want to, or give them the option to say no, as opposed to just taking the option away from them completely because you just don't give a crap. But that's all for the wonderful facts portion of it. Let's dive into some stuff that just has your little puzzle. What about like the thing that still get me about this whole, breakdown and do that is the fact that the 55 and plus, like what? Old folks out here getting it in. Hey, look, man, people gonna do what they do, but it trips me out because, like, you've seen, I don't even remember what show it was on, but it was a show on TV that talked about it where it was an old folks home, and a bunch of people in the old folks home was messing around with each other, and they all contracted an STD. And then you watch it on TV, like, man, that's pretty funny. But then you look at it in reality, you're like, that's what they doing in old folks home. It jacks you up because people's mindset. You think of an old folks home. Old folks sitting there, kind of sliding their feet around with walkers, sitting there playing checkers or chess or book clubs or whatever they got going on or what they're doing. But then you find out the dark secret. They're doing link ups. They setting up rendezvous. And then they're making it happen. Grandma and grandpa in there doing what they're doing. Right? And then it's like when you look at the studies, it tells you that a lot of the reasons that they're having a rise in STDs in that group as well is due to people getting back into the dating scene, people engaging with each other, things of that nature. So it's like it happens. I got some aunties that's upper in age. And I'm like, I might have put a notice out to them like, hey, you better protect yourselves. You out there getting it in, you riding that magic carpet. If my cousin DeMel hears this, you know what I'm talking about. If you're out there riding that magic carpet, make sure you out there protecting yourselves because it's out there. So I say this to say, appreciate you guys for checking out the podcast. Appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys for comment, liking, and subscribing. The goal is to keep on popping these out, keep it running. I don't need to put that out there because it's going to pop by the time this one comes out. The other ones will be done aired. But keep an eye out for from videos to hit. They are recorded, so once they're recorded, they will hit a live stream pre-programmed for them to go live at certain points of time to kind of help grow the community, help get it out there, get the information out there, and then just give people some good talking points. So if you come to the page, you come across the video, make sure you comment on it. If you come across it on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, drop a comment, drop a like, give some insight of some things you want to talk about, some things you want me to cover. And we will go from there. We're just going to continue to push. Like I said, you can consider this my therapy session of being able to talk some things out and get some stuff rolling. So in the next pod, we're going to get ahead and dive into just some of the other stuff going on in the country, man. There was a case of a truck driver, man, not having papers, an illegal truck driver. He was an illegal, and he ended up causing an accident that ended up killed the family, kids and all. So we'll probably dive into that on the next podcast. So just be on the lookout for it. And like I said, make sure you like, listen, and subscribe.